Oh my God. I'm so glad someone's finally asking me about this. No
I
one's
was say,
actually asked me.
really? No one?
No.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Awardist. I'm Entertainment Weekly Senior TV Editor Gerrad Hall, and I cannot tell you how excited I am for today's episode and today's guest, the star of the HBO limited series Mare of Easttown. It's Kate Winslet. Thanks so much for joining me, Kate. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, I've got to say, for those who don't know, Mare of Easttown received 16 Emmy nominations, which is just outstanding and all very well deserved. You know, there were, so many fascinating and compelling aspects to this series and the character Mare's job. We've started with a missing teen girl. There's the murdered teen girl. She's divorced. Her son's suicide. Raising her grandson. Her, situation with her teenage daughter. She's trying to date. She has the live-in mother. So of all of those, is there an aspect or an element that stands out more than the others in terms of the reactions that you received or read? One thing in particular, maybe more than the others, that people really latched onto and responded to?
So I think the first thing that I feel really grateful and I guess touched by is that people really responded to how capable Mare comes across whilst dealing with this extraordinary grief.
Mm.
And for me, that was very, very moving because we really tried to handle the mental health issues that run a sort of steady thread throughout our show. We tried to handle them with a really delicate hand, and it was a very fine line. It was a fine line because, of course, underneath it all, she is in grief, but she is also depressed. She is depressed, and she has suffered herself at the hands of mental health, and I think not playing that too heavily or heftily was really challenging. It just had to sit in the sort of pit of my stomach all the time and be,
Yeah.
I guess, a quiet simmer that that was really hard and would make me feel daily very sad and sick,
Sure.
really.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that people responded to that in ways that resonated with them or struck a chord with them and created some kind of a connection, that was wonderful.
See this yet? Big write-up in the Tribune. I'm going to frame it and hang it up in your office.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
My daughter's been missing for exactly 1 year, and the police aren't doing anything.
How's your mother doing?
She's being the hero.
Of all the houses my ex-husband can move into, he has to buy the one right behind mine.
Well, I heard he got a really good deal on it.
People have been just in raptures about how we were able to make Mare look, and that was very important to us creatively. You know, we didn't want to do a kind of like TV version of this character or adapted for the screen version of someone looking like they haven't slept much and they don't really drink water and then they eat junk food and that they're basically depressed. We wanted to just we wanted to keep it really, really real, and we would be strict about it too. We'd be like, no, not that t-shirt, too flattering. Let's find one that's got a really bad line that hits at the hip on the widest point, and we'd go for those things. No bra. She just got up out of bed. Why would she have a bra on? Perhaps because of COVID and how much of a struggle that has been for everyone globally. There was something about how Mare comes across, her demeanor, how she holds herself and looks, that I think sort of seemed to make people feel validated in a way. And that was very, very surprising. I didn't think that people would be so, I guess, responsive and almost grateful in a way that we were able to do that.
One might think that the wardrobe and hair and makeup process may have been easier or quicker, but in ways was it opposite because downplaying everything is just as difficult as glam?
A huge amount of thought and work and preparation went into all the fine details. Like it was an idea I had really early on in the kind of prep process when we were trying to figure out what her hair was going to be like. I mean, we had a kind of hysterical wig trying on session where we had short wigs and long brown wigs. And actually in Brad Inglesby's original description of Mare in episode 1, Mare, tall, athletic, with a crop of short brown hair. And I was like, tall, me? No. Athletic? No, I'm more donut-like. and and I just didn't think that the short hair was quite right. I felt it might make her a bit too sort of sharp or cold looking. And actually, you know, being a woman, I know that I've gone through emotional cycles in my life where I've not wanted to look at myself in the mirror. I've certainly not wanted to go and get my hair done. You know, I haven't given a shit about what I've looked like because I just don't feel it. You don't feel feminine. You don't feel attractive. You don't feel any degree of concern for your emotional, your physical self. It's all about, I guess, sort of picking your way through those tough emotional moments. If Kevin had died about 20 months previously, that she wouldn't have touched her hair ever since then. Hence why she has this sort of 4 inches of not very nice regrowth. That was a wig. It's a full and complete wig. My hair is just a bit, well, it was too long. I could have happily cut it. But actually, my hair is too fine, and we wanted Mare's hair to feel like it was a bit thick and wiry and maybe a bit uncontrollable, which is why she ties it back all the time. We added a bit of eyebrows so that my eyebrows didn't look as defined. We didn't really want anything defined at all about Mare's face. And, you know, adding a few things like sort of sunspots on my cheeks and just little stuff like that that just kind of make the face look really translucent and just nothing. We would never hang my clothes up. So I'd take my costume off, and we would leave it in that sort of crumpled shape that we all leave our jeans by the side of the bed when you've had too many beers, and you just like it just lives there in this crumpled sort of sculpture. So we would leave my clothes like that.
I have to read this quote to you. My colleague Lynette Rice recently spoke to Titus Welliver, and she asked him what he's been watching lately, and he said Mare of Easttown, and here's what he said almost verbatim. I've been losing my mind. I've always had tremendous respect for Kate Winslet as an actor. Her performance on Mare of Easttown, pound for pound, may be some of the best work I've ever seen an actor do. The acting is uniformly excellent, but Winslet's performance, there's a scene where she's having a consultation with her grandson's doctor, and I kept having to pause it and take it in. It's inspiring, and I would say any actor, if they haven't watched this, it should be required viewing because Kate's work in it is an absolute masterclass clinic in economy and stillness, and it's staggering.
Wow, that's a really amazing thing to hear, and actually to hear those comments about that scene in particular, which was not written in the way that we ended up playing it. You know, it was much more written like Mare's just kind of giving the facts. But every time I would rehearse the scene with my husband, I kept getting really upset. And he kept saying to me, you know, you're going to have to give them some options, babe. You can't just keep getting upset. So I then just tried very, very hard to rein in the emotional sort of agony of really admitting that this is the moment when Mare admits for the first time out loud that she was not a very good mother, and that her son had things that she thought were wrong with him and that she could not fix. You know, he had mental health disorders, but she couldn't make any kind of peace with that. She just decided there was something wrong with her child, and the shame and the guilt bound up in having failed him it became agony for me to even talk about, because I'd sort of built this backstory about Mare's relationship with Kevin. It's even hard to talk about now. You know, it was very hard to just walk the line, and I just wanted it to feel real. I just wanted it to feel like these are things that happen to people all the time. And you know, I'm a mum, I've got 3 kids, you know, we've all got our stuff. And there was a lot of tricky detail to get around in that particular scene.
Sure.
I was against medicating. I don't know that either of us were right. We were dogs chasing our tails for a long time, you know? Right. I had to check out after a while. You know, just... became totally overwhelming, you know? not being able to figure him out.
I would like to talk to you about Jean Smart, who is just a gem if there ever was one. She was telling me, I think she told the story a couple times now, about the day she fell down those stairs.
Oh my God.
Concussion, broke a rib, in the hospital for days. But she said when it happened, you were just kind of sitting there with her, comforting her while, you know, kind of she was in pain, waiting for paramedics to get there. And then one of the paramedics said to her something about how worried her daughter was. And she was like, what are you talking about? My daughter's not here. He's like, no, her. And he's like, she said, that's Kate Winslet. Do you not realize who you were talking to?
Well,
like,
it
nope,
was,
had no idea.
It was quite funny. I mean, no, Jean falling down the stairs was not funny at all. It was like watching, it was like watching a stunt that was going very wrong, very slowly before my very eyes. It was like, and I couldn't get to her fast enough. This was the thing, you know, Guy Pearce and I walk out the front door and Helen sort of leans over the staircase a little bit too far. And on one take, she leant just really too far and fell over the banister and down the downstairs. But Guy and I had walked away from the shot because we needed to clear the frame. And so we were probably about 20 feet from her, which sounds like it's not very far. But when you're trying to stop someone's fall, it's the difference between them injuring themselves and them hopefully not, if you are able to sort of dive in their way or catch them. Anyway, needless to say, I couldn't catch her and she'd fallen. She also has a wig as Helen, and I knew that it would be kinder for her wig to be taken off before she was put into an ambulance than for some paramedics to be stepping in and not really understanding what that was or what, you know. So I sort of had her lying across my body, and I was trying to sort of cushion her back because she had cracked some ribs. And then with the other hand, I'm sort of holding the cushion to sort of protect her body. And then with the other hand, I'm leaning into her face and I'm just going, Jean, honey, I'm just going to take your wig off. But it was pretty dramatic. Yeah, but I went into sort of full sort of, like I was protecting a family member. It was really, And I wouldn't let anyone near her. I was like, no, I've got this. I didn't want anyone to touch her. It was like a fully mother-daughter moment.
Love that. As I understand it, you sent her the SNL sketch Murder Dirter.
Oh my God. I'm so glad someone's finally asking me about this. No one's actually asked me.
Really? No one? I mean, at first I had it as
me.
My first question. I was like, I should ask some other things first. But I mean, what is it? Is it a badge of honor? What say you about Murder Dirter?
I have never felt so validated as an actor in my entire life as I now do because of Murder Dirter. I mean,
forget the Oscar.
Forget it. Honestly, we were crying, and every now and then in our household we'll be like, "Oh, should we just quickly watch it?" And we'll just all
have to.
We'll so crowd brilliant. Around the iPhone, like crying with laughter.
Oh no, I know her. It's Owen's Dirter.
Dirter?
Did I stir? The Dirter's been murdered.
Oh, daughter.
Well, I was going to ask you about episode 5 because, Evan Peters,
I know.
I mean, you start to have a tiny suspicion that like, oh no, something's going to happen, isn't it? And it sure as hell does. Okay, I want to know the difference for you in filming the scene versus watching like the final cut of that.
That is honestly a really, really good question, because I'd say the end of episode 5, like the final like sort of 14 minutes of episode 5, that was the most sort of heavily worked on piece of editing across all of us, like Brad and Mark Roybal and then Craig Zobel and the editors and notes from HBO. And it was partly because, you know, obviously we needed to get the tension right. There was another element to the Wayne Potts story arc that we ended up completely removing, which was much more sinister. It went into the much more sinister side of what was actually happening to those women. So what we did cut out of episode 5 was some elements where Mare is upstairs in the attic, and having sort of seen those girls and said sort of, shush, I'm coming back for you.
Right.
There's another room in the attic where we see sort of hints at what took place in that room. So that had to be cut out. And it wasn't a very extensive sequence, but it was enough that we had to editorial get things right for continuity reasons and so on and so forth. So just a lot of that. But we had to really get it right because, you know, in that moment of Mare going, I haven't got a gun, and Zabel has been shot, she doesn't know at that point when she runs away whether he's actually dead or not. Yeah. But we had to be careful not to let her suddenly go into like action hero mode. And of course, I'd learned all these policey things. I'd learned all the technical details, and not just how to hold a gun, but, you know, how to hide, how to, you know, peek around corners of rooms, etc. I'd learned all of those things. But I worked alongside a female detective named Christine Blaler, who was brilliant. And she would say to me over and over again, she'd say to me, shit happens, just keep it messy, you know, just with handcuffs. She'd say to me, it doesn't have to be perfect, just slap them on and get them down the station. You know, she'd say things like that. So in that moment of Zabel being shot, she was full on, like, just let it be messy, because you do have, like, as a police officer, you do have moments of complete panic where you think, oh shit, I've forgotten all my training, I don't know what I'm doing. And the most important thing, of course, is that she doesn't have a sidearm. So keeping the stakes high in terms of the panic. And of course, Evan's performance is so flawless. You know, he's such a fine actor. And of course he doesn't think he is, and he berates himself, and he's really, really hard on himself, like we all are. But he is really hard on himself. And so it was impossible to say to him, look, you're doing great. You're doing it all. Just be okay with it. He could never quite be okay with it.
I was just hoping for a minute, like maybe that bullet actually just hit his ear. And that's the kind of like that quick moment of blood we saw, but sadly, no. And of course, I mean, our time's almost up here, but I have to recognize, of course, Julianne Nicholson's fantastic and very understated and quiet performance as well. She's just phenomenal. Everyone on the team here, production design, editors, music, bravo all around on this. It's just fantastic. And you know, there's some things that you're like, oh, do I want to watch something a second time? And it's involving murder and you know, kidnapped people and grief and all that. But this is something I want to watch again because I know there are things I missed the first time around. So I will be diving back in.
That's great. Oh, well, thank you. And, you know, we all just feel so proud of it. And, you know, look, it's Brad Inglesby. He created a middle-aged heroine, and in the form of Mare Sheehan. And, you know, I got to indulge in her and play her and be, you know, bitten in the arse by her. And
perhaps if he comes up with another idea, we'll have another season. Fingers crossed.
Well, people keep asking, you know, people do keep asking about it, and all I can tell you is the honest to God's truth, which was at the end of shooting, we were like, oh, holy hell, we can never ever do that again. So if HBO bring up the idea of a season 2, we've all just got to say, no, absolutely not. There's just no way we could ever possibly do it. And then, of course, there was talk of like, well, could there be, you know, when the show was getting such great responses. And creatively, Brad has shared some very cool ideas, and I don't know, we'll see what happens. But, you know, I also have to like figure out, can I do it? You know, could I go through it again? Like, because it did, you know, it did cost me a lot emotionally to be her. And I just have to figure out if I can summon all that up again and do it all again. But, you know, it was a ride, that's for sure. But we'll see. We'll see.
I cannot even imagine. Well, fingers crossed for you come Emmys Day. I greatly appreciate your time and congratulations on everything. Thanks for joining us on The Awardist.
Thanks, Gerrad. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.